Well, hello and welcome to this evening. I'm delighted to introduce our guest tonight. She is an author, an entrepreneur and successful Instagram influencer, and has committed to raising awareness for what she terms as invisible illnesses. She is a sickle cell sufferer herself and has lived with pain and uncertainty her whole life, and is here tonight to share her story and to wrestle with the question of where is God when it hurts. So let me introduce Anne Welsh.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here in such uncertain times as well. So yeah. I'm really glad I'm here.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm pleased you're here. And I was thinking about everything that has been happening and the fact that at the moment, as not only a nation but a world, we're facing uncertainty and anxieties.
Yeah.
And yet that is something that you have lived with your whole life. So I'm very grateful that you're here tonight to share with us some of the things you've learned.
Yes. It's been a struggle.
Yeah.
It's been, it's been a difficult childhood and my adolescent years as well. Was such a struggle. Sometimes I look back at it and think, how did I get through those difficult stages of my life? Yeah. And I'm extremely grateful that I was able to do it. I was able to live through those years of those hardship years of struggling, of pain, of suffering, of not knowing as well, not knowing what tomorrow will be, because you have kids, you have to know, you have to think what would tomorrow be for your kids. So I'm grateful in times like where we are today that I've lived through this challenge of my life, and I'm utilizing what I've learned over the years, and I'm applying it in today's events as well.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, we're just beginning to do that in some ways.
I know.
So, Anne, you look very well tonight, but I know that isn't actually the case, and you have this remarkable term of invisible illness. Can you tell us a bit about your own invisible illness that you suffer with?
Yes. I was born and diagnosed with something called sickle cell anemia. And it's not something a lot of people know because it's a genetic blood disorder that affects mostly people from the African, Black African or Black Caribbean. So it's not widely known. So people ask me, what is sickle cell? So sickle cell is a genetic blood disorder where the red blood cell shape, which is normally an oval shape, mine, when I have sickle cell crisis, turns into a crescent shape. So in that form of it being a crescent shape, it becomes sticky and rigid, and then they all come together. In the process of the cells coming together, when the blood is trying to flow, because that thing has now caused blockage, the crescent shape all sticking together and being rigid, prevents blood from going into the vital organs, like your spleen and all the bones and every part of your organs that needs blood, and that causes excruciating pain. And when I mean pain of a knife stabbing pain. I've never had a knife attack or anything like that, but I know when I'm in that pain, I always say to my mom, just end it. There's no point in living right now, because it's so bad that I feel I'm personally attacked. That place where the blood is not flowing to, I feel a knife is just constantly punking at it and poaching me. And the only way out is going into hospital and being administered IV fluid, and not just IV fluid, you get oxygen. So oxygen, you have to get really intense oxygen into you. And so the oxygen could force the rigid blood that's all cluttered together to try and get to your, all the organs that need oxygen immediately. And the final thing we have, painkillers. We have to be given painkillers to really help us and control the pain that we're going through. So it's really a serious thing. So
it's not just the excruciating pain that you face as a sickle cell sufferer, but also actually the life-threatening nature of it, of your organs not getting enough oxygen.
And infection as well. So we're always prone to infection, pneumonia, there's so many side effects that comes from sickle cell that people don't know about. But I think over time people are starting to realize that, because there's the pneumonia. Each time I'm in hospital, I have lots of infection. So not only are the doctors struggling to maintain and manage my pain, they're also struggling to make sure that I'm breathing well, I'm not suffering from pneumonia. I haven't I'm not infected in one area or the other. So it's such a challenging illness to live with, and it's something, even as a child or an adult, you always facing that question of asking yourself, why me? Why am I going through this thing? Why out of the whole universe did God pick you to deal with this challenging pain? Because, you know, you explain it to people, people don't quite understand it, but anyone who's gone through surgery and have to use morphine to maintain the pain, then realize, did you say you have to have morphine to control your pain? And yeah, that's how bad it can be.
And this isn't just something that affects you, but actually is quite wide-ranging. I was amazed looking before this interview at some of the stats and figures. So tell us a bit, how common is this?
Luckily, I didn't think about it initially, but as I got isolated from my illness, I didn't have anyone to talk to. No one was similar in my position. So I felt very alone and very isolated. So I decided to join the Sickle Cell Society UK. And when I joined that organization, I found that I'm not alone. There are other people like me that are going through similar pains and feeling very, this effect of sickle cell. And in the UK alone, there are 15,000 people living with sickle cell disorder. And babies born annually, about 3,000, 100, babies born annually living with sickle cell. And you wonder what is being done to address this. But the good thing about this is that the UK has started a thing called screening, where every baby born in the UK, it doesn't matter your race, ethnicity, it doesn't matter, because we found that if sickle cell wasn't just a Black African or Black Caribbean disease, it were other people who were from different ethnicity that were suffering from sickle cell. So we now do screening for every single baby born in the UK. And that tells you immediately if you're a carrier, if you've got sickle cell, and it solves the issue. I mean, it's that awareness of knowing that this child is being born and baby has this is something I think is an amazing thing. I wish I applaud the UK government for taking on and giving this incentive to many mothers out there, because it's such a serious genetic illness that causes so much pain that it doesn't have to be that way. Because even myself, I made a personal choice that I won't want anyone to suffer the way I've suffered.
And I mean, in fact, that my first encounter with sickle cell was when I had my first child, and they had the heel prick test, and that was one of the things that they were testing for. But and that wasn't the case for you when you were born. You weren't screened, and it wasn't until you were 3, was it, that you actually received a proper diagnosis for this?
Yes. So I wasn't born in the UK. I was born in Nigeria. But the difference is that even though I was born in Nigeria, they didn't know anything about it. People kind of knew that this girl was sick, but no one quite understood what exactly she was suffering from. My mom, when I was born, at 6 months old, I was in so much pain. And my mom saw this child crying, and the symptoms I had were swollen limbs, and all my limbs are swollen. My mom couldn't quite figure it out. She thought, oh, probably I've been malnourished, I haven't been eating right, or something was wrong with me. And then she rushed me off to the doctor. The doctor said, oh, just give her the normal kids medicine. So she did that. And a couple of months later, the thing came back again. And my mom was actually now more concerned that this is happening too frequently. What is wrong with this child of mine? And then she took me again to the doctor, and the doctor said she has sickle cell. That was it. He did say the word sickle cell, but he didn't say anything. And my mom was like, what's sickle cell? So she just probably thought it's like a headache kind of thing. And she said, he just said, take her home, give her medicine, and that was it. Never, my mom didn't hear anything about the word sickle cell again. I was 3 years old, and we moved over when I went to the UK when I was 2. And when I was 3 years old, the symptoms kept happening. My mum she would take me to hospital, and the doctors would just say, oh, just give her paracetamol, give her Calpol, the kids medicine they would give kids. And it came one day when I was 3 years old. I was very naughty. I had this weird habit, and I would eat sponges.
Okay.
And I would be my mum took me to nursery school, and I'll be in the nursery school. I would hide in corners, and I would start eating the sponges. And the nursery teacher called my mum aside and said, your daughter might have psychological issue. There's something probably wrong with her mind. She's every time during playtime, she hides herself in a corner and she starts eating sponges. And we've caught her there several times. There must be something. We think we recommend that you take her to Great Ormond Street Hospital to get tested and see what's wrong with her mentally. And in doing so, my mom booked an appointment to see what's wrong with this weird child. And we got to the hospital, we did the blood test. I was 3 years old. And the doctor said, you just need to answer. She didn't take me to normal hematology hospital, it took me to psychology because they didn't think something was wrong with me. And after doing the test, and my mom said, oh yeah, she's fine to go. She could go home now. We'll get back to you with the result if we notice anything wrong psychological with her mind. And next time my mom gets a phone call and said, we need to see you. My mom said, but she's only eating foam. It can't be that serious. I said, well, it's serious. We need to see you. There's something we noticed in her blood that was quite unusual. My mom said, but we've tested her blood out and with so many different doctors. And everyone says she's fine, so what's the big deal? They said, well, just come in and we need to see you. So they sat her down, and that's when they told her, your daughter has sickle cell. My mom remembered hearing it back in Nigeria, but not quite knowing what sickle cell was. I didn't even bother because no one told her it was something of a life-threatening illness. He just said your daughter has sickle cell. My mom sat back and they understand what it meant. So she got home and she called a couple of friends. And then their friends started confessing that their kids have sickle cell. My mom said, but why didn't you tell me? They said, they don't like to talk about it because it's not illness that is something you want people to know that your kids has. So we try and keep it, but this is what we know a little bit about the disease. And
so there was a sense of shame around it? Or
there's a big stigma around sickle cell because back in Africa, back then, my mom has always said when she did her research, there was a stigma around it because of people associated us to be witches. Because they felt, how can a child be well today and without you doing anything to the child is sick. And sickle cell tends to happen at night. So people in the village were not quite sure, why would the child always be sick at night? And I'm not quite sure myself up to today why I'm always sick at night time. As soon as I put my head down to go rest after I've done all this strenuous work, at night time it just hits me. And that's when I have to call the ambulance, I have to call, so everyone say, it's time. Yeah. So there was that thing about it. So no one would ever want to talk about it. And even my mom's, we asked her friend to give me advice, what should I do? No one would talk. Everyone would say, you have to figure it out on your own. And that's all she did.
Wow, but so there was a real lack of information that your mother had when you were younger, which is now changed, although I suppose part of what we're doing now is sharing information about this, about this illness. Exactly. So what was your childhood like then? I mean, eating sponges, but tell us a little bit more what it was like growing up with sickle cell.
It was challenging. I was very, very hard growing up as a child with sickle cell because my parents didn't know how to manage me in the sense, my father would say, because you're always sick at night, so you need to drink X amount of water before you go to bed. And as a child, drinking that much water before you go to bed, I recall in the middle of the night, trying to wake up to go wee. I've done it 3 times. The 4th time, I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'll just wait in the bed. I was bedwetting till I was about 15. I didn't hit puberty. Everyone did that. I didn't do it until very, very late on in life. I didn't do well in school because I just didn't understand what was going on. The teacher tried to teach me, and I had my sisters who would look up to me and think, oh, she's the cool big sister, because I have 2 younger sisters and a brother at the time. And everyone would look up to me, but I just didn't know what my purpose was in life. And then the worst bit would come when the pain comes on. When I start suffering with the pain, I always used to ask, why can't I get to the point B without having something draw me? So I'll go A, B, C. Then all of a sudden I go 20 steps backwards. I'm like, what's this with God? Why me? So as a child, it was difficult. I always asked questions. I hated being a child. I hated my family. I blamed my mom and dad for not, knowing, especially when I knew what this was. I blamed them for not knowing because I couldn't fit in. But my dad tried to adjust to it by trying to make me fit in by telling my sisters, you can't go out. if I wet the bed, he would say, you girls have to switch sides, and Anne could sleep in your bed and they will sleep. So he just made it fun. Try to understand that, okay, I was suffering emotionally and he didn't want that to be seen. My mom would always never talk about sickle cell because she just didn't know she knew I had this thing, but because she didn't understand, she didn't want it to be mentioned all the time at home. So they tend to blank out the subject. It's just, we had to give Anne special treatment. We have to make sure she has lots of water. If we buy things, we don't fight with Anne. My sister never fought with me. Even though between both of them, they would fight a lot. But when it comes to fighting with me, they just stayed away and no matter how much I upset them, they would just leave me to be. Yeah.
And what was that like for you then, socially with your siblings and also with friends?
Friends is impossible.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's made me think about friends in a different way, because especially when you come, I remember one time I came back to school, it's about 8, I came to school and I was just 7, just how you remember things. And I remember going to class and I sat back at my desk and a girl said to me, I'm not going to be your best friend again because I'm not sure if you'll be here tomorrow. And if I talk to you, I don't want, then tomorrow I have to look for a best friend. No one talks to me when you're not here. And at the time I thought, oh, what a mean thing for you to say. Then until I lived in her situation, I felt like, okay, this girl is not being mean. She's just being honest that I'm never there. In a month, I'm probably there once a month. And the other 3 weeks, I'm probably in hospital or just at home schooling. So she was just giving her honest opinion about my absence. And but as a child, hearing that, you just don't know how to take it. And then people always target you, that you're teacher's pet, because teacher has to ask you if you want water, if you want this, if you want that. And then you become a target. The kids don't want to play with you. Then kids say, oh, you're so fragile. Then are you so skinny? The kids will say, why are you so skinny? Don't you eat? Or what's wrong with you? Why? And they will see you. And all that played with my mind. I just felt worthless. No matter what I tried to be good, I just felt, why am I trying so hard? I'm not ever going to be good enough. And you felt punished.
Well, I mean,
you felt punished by God.
Incredibly sort of almost set apart from everyone else.
Yeah.
Not in a good way.
No, not in a good way.
And at such formative years as well, and that sense of being punished. Tell me a bit about that. What was your understanding of? Was it God who was punishing you, or what did you think and feel at the time?
In a young age, we used to go to church quite a lot. So I didn't think it was God. I just thought it was my parents who were punishing me, and why did they have me, this deformed child? But as I started going to church, and you always hear this thing at church, God is love, God is kind. You hear this wonderful thing, Jesus loved the children, come to me. I'm thinking, where did you miss me? God is love, where's that love on me? Did God miss me? What happened? And I never quite got it, what God is love really meant. Because for me, I didn't think God is love. I think God was the lottery. He picks the people he loves, not for all. So if you're lucky, and I always felt my sisters were lucky, God really loved them. They did well in school, they flourished, everything was easy for them. For me, everything was, if someone is working hard, I had to work twice as hard to fit into society and to be a person who I needed to be. So when I heard that God is love, that didn't make sense to me as a child growing up, even as a teenager. But with time, I started to understand what that meant.
I'm intrigued. Tell us a bit about what you began to understand.
I mean, it was a time I was in hospital in the UK. It's about 24, and I was going on a business trip, and I couldn't get to that business trip. They booked my ticket. The client booked everything, made sure I was ready to go. And a day before, I started having signs, but I said to myself, it's no big deal. It's gonna go away. Take all your painkillers. And I started taking painkillers from the morning, you know, aggressively taking them. Nighttime, it just didn't want to go away. I have one more day, I said to myself, so don't worry, keep taking the painkiller, but never go into hospital because you know they'll keep you there.
Okay.
That's a no-no. The next day, the day before the travel, I started taking painkillers, and at this time I noticed I was not making, there's a fine line where you could take your painkillers and you have to decide within yourself, you have to really be honest with yourself. They're not working anymore. You have to stop and go hospital for immediate treatment.
Yeah.
That was hard. That was hard. Because I really, really wanted to go on this trip. I wanted to. I don't know why. You know, I didn't understand things like where you could cancel things or cancel business trip, or I didn't understand that you could reschedule things. In my mind, I wanted to go on this trip.
Yeah.
In hospital, when I was in hospital and admitted, I stayed in hospital that week, for that illness for 2 weeks. I knew that would be the case because I delayed the getting to hospital to get the treatment I needed. While I was in hospital, my doctor was very nice. He came to me and he came, you know, where they come for world round, and he started talking to me. I was so mean to him in front of everyone. But it didn't stop there. I thought, okay, now he's got the points. He's going to go away. Now, he took time out of his busy schedule when he's finished, and he came over to me and started talking to me. And he started telling me about life. And for me, I think that was a moment where I had to make that decision about my own life. I had to really think deep about my life, where he started telling me about his own illness as well. You know, you see him, he's this doctor, wonderful doctor, doing marvelous work for us, putting his life at risk for me. And there is me being so rude and because I just can't go on a business trip. Then I started reflecting. When he left, I really did reflect on what he said. And I remember other people I was talking to started telling me something similar. And you know, when in one go, everyone is telling you the same thing, it means there's a message. There's a message coming from this. And I had to reflect on this message. I started seeing other people who were suffering more than I was suffering. And when I mean suffering, we all suffer. Sometimes we get so consumed in our own suffering that we forget the rest. And that was me. I was selfish when I was in pain. Because when you're in pain, you're so much in pain, you forget the rest. You forget everybody else. You even forget that the people caring for you are also in pain because they're seeing you in so much pain, they're not quite sure you will make it through. I started reflecting on all of these people. Look, the carers looking after me. The other people who are in other kinds of pain. You know, mine was chronic illness pain, but some people were going through bereavement pain. Some people were going through divorce pains. I have all kinds of pain in this world. And I realized that at the end of the day, I have great people around me. My family were always there. Doesn't matter how bad I went, how deep I sank. They were always there to help me, pull me out of that well. And I started to be grateful. And I realized that there is God. There is God. But I just had to find it in myself. And I had to accommodate him because I wasn't accommodating. It was all about me. It was very deep about me. Yeah.
That's quite extraordinary because, you know, given the significance of the pain that you experienced, you can understand why you would feel it was all about you, but there's something about actually gratitude and noticing the good things and the other things that pointed you to God, or that helped you to experience His love, or what was it?
I think suffering brings you that.
Okay.
Yeah, when you're suffering so much. And when you don't know what tomorrow brings, you know, because when I had my son, I wasn't quite sure what tomorrow would be all about. All I know, I have this beautiful baby, but who's going to look after him? So I'm suffering in my own environment. When I when we got married, I was suffering as well because I wasn't quite sure if we'll make it to the altar because there was just so much obstacles, things that were preventing us from getting there. When we, when I started my job, my first job, I wasn't quite sure. There was just so much suffering around it. So suffering gives you this closeness and a relationship with God. And I think sometimes in this world, this is one of the reasons that we all suffer in one form or the other, because that actually brings you closer to God. In my own suffering, of my pain, of not knowing how to achieve my dreams, there were promotion going on at work. I was never considered for promotion because no one wants to promote someone that will never make it to the next, that could never go on a client meeting. If a client has a meeting, Anne can't make it. You could do it once, you could do it twice, then all of a sudden, then it's not nice anymore. So no one wants to promote you to the next best thing. So you're always in pain, you're suffering from the environment you're living in. So that has to bring you closer because you just hope by faith you meet the right people. That God positioned you in such a way you meet the right people. And that's when I started believing, I started meeting the right people who opened the door for me and gave me ways to work better. Yeah.
So there was something about suffering that brought you closer to God.
Yeah.
I suppose a couple of things in my mind is one, what did that look like? What did your relationship with God look like when you were suffering? Was it just a sort of belief that He was there, or I don't know? Can you?
I think when you're really suffering, when you're really deep in your pain and not knowing what tomorrow brings, whether the lights will turn on or turn off, or whether you eat or not eat, whether you make it alive, it brings you to God in a very unique way because you see yourself in Him. You become friends with Him in a very deep way because you need friends. And at this time, friends could visit you so much at hospital, but it gets to a point it gets boring for them and they start isolating you. Your family does their best to do it, but they need to get on with their life because even my husband, he needs to go back home and look after the other kids. So my suffering of my pain really stemmed when I was in ICU and I wasn't quite sure I would make it alive. And I could hear doctors whispering all around me, saying, oh my goodness, her HB is dropping dramatically, we're not quite sure what's happening. I think at that point in your life, you have to ask the question, God, where are you? Yeah, you have to shout out loud in your own little voice, God, where are you? I need you right now. Yeah. And it teaches you that no matter what you're going through, if you really have faith, even though it's hard at times when you're going through it, but you just have to have faith that God will hopefully answer that prayer. And even if it doesn't, you still have a friend in God that will be with you, whatever the circumstances will be.
So there's something about His presence being with you in those moments when you're alone. Perhaps can't even communicate to other people.
Yes, exactly. When you have nothing, you just can't talk to anyone. You're just alone in this isolated world.
And what about, I suppose, in the face of death? I'm aware that for most of us, we avoid death, thinking about it or talking about it, and yet for you, it's a lived reality. So what? I don't know. What difference has your faith made on you facing death?
Facing death is something where you have to really think deep about, and it's something where you're at that borderline, where you're at the cliff and you're at that borderline. You're just hoping, or you're lost in the woods somewhere, and you're just hoping that someone finds you. I think it's exactly like that. So you just hope that your friend in God and your friendship with Him makes Him more close, makes Him come to you and realize your presence. But that can't be done unless you have a friendship with Him. And in that moment, you need to find that. And only you can find it. And it's made me realize that there's so much going on in this world. There's so much going on in my little environment, but at that time I need to be between me and just my own religion and what I believe in. Yeah, my God, no one else. Yeah.
Now, Anne, it's amazing hearing your own story, and yet I'm aware that for other people, when they're suffering, God perhaps doesn't feel close. I suppose, what gives you certainty that he's there? So there's your own experience, but is there anything else that's tangible that you hold on to?
Faith.
Yeah.
Faith is one thing that's absolutely tangible that I hold on to. Nothing else. Faith and hope. Because I recall when I wanted to have my daughter, and I was so adamant I wanted to have a baby. At the same time, I had all the no's from the doctors on why I shouldn't go ahead and have the second baby, because you can't take blood anymore, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's gonna be you're gonna be a high risk patient because you're now over that age where it's advisable for women to have babies. And I just believed, I just saw a vision, and I just went with faith. I just believed. And even though it was so difficult to achieve, because I had to go through a process, it wasn't just a simple process of having the baby. The faith in me and the hope for the child will not bring me away. It just will not stop. So the only thing I hold on to is faith and hope. You just have to have that faith. And if you see it, and that is very true. If you see it, if you can dream it, you can make it happen. And I held on that tightly, that every process of me going through the stages of having my baby was so easy because of the faith I saw. Because I saw the worst that could happen, and I had to diminish. You have to think about, when you have a chronic illness, you always have to think about the worst. And for the worst is death. And in this case, it wasn't that quite so. There were other things. The worst was that I would probably be paralyzed and I have to wear the oxygen mask for the rest of my life. Like, I know a lot of people who are doing that. Or the worst could be that, you and baby might not make it out okay. But at the same time, because I had this faith and I saw this thing, I put this in my prayers the whole time. It just became, it seemed like every stage of the way, God was walking me through it. So it's no difficulty, because God was seeing me through and walking with me along the way. Yeah.
It's interesting. So there's this kind of contrast on one hand of having faith and trusting God, and yet on the other hand, accepting what has happened, and I suppose the things that aren't going the way that you want them to go.
No, I think it gets to a point, even if you have faith, your faith also guides you through that, because sometimes there's a limit. It's like for me now, with my faith, I could say I could have all the faiths. I want to have the third child. But I then have to be realistic now. I also have to be very, very realistic. As much as my faith, it will guide me through. And I know if I go for it, if I put my mind to it, because everything also goes with the mind. When God is there with you, God guides you. But at the same time, even when I'm in hospital, my mom's taught me this, is that in all things you pray. And you pray for the outcome. And you pray for the good outcome, and you pray for the bad outcome as well. She's taught me that all the time, because she's been there so many times with me in hospital, and she's seen it happen to me numerous times. So my mom has faith. She believes. She knows I'll be better. But she also prays, and she hopes that whatever decision God makes, she's there. He's there and doing it for a good reason. Yeah.
So trusting in Him and the decisions that He will ultimately make. Now, tell me a little bit about, I suppose, how you balance up working hard and choosing to go ahead with things, but also taking care of yourself. and that balance? Because I know reading about your story, that's something that you really have grown into.
Yeah.
And I think probably for most of us in London, we struggle with getting that balance between hard work and self-care. So, yeah, what insights do you have to share with us?
I think for me, it came to a point where I had to accept my limitation. And before I would not, especially when I was much younger, and my sisters would go clubbing, or they would go to church service. I remember in 2000, in the year 2000, when they had this big party, and I really wanted to go. I was so desperate to go, and I couldn't go because I was sick. And things like this has taught me so much about life, about I want so much, but I just can't have it all. Yeah, I mean, because I've been disappointed. So I think with chronic illness, I've been disappointed so much in my life.
Yeah.
So many things, so many job offers that you had to turn down. So many, how many dates could you go on? You can't really go on any, because you have to find someone that truly loves you with you as the person you are and the person you are when you're sick. So it was challenging. Yeah. The way I've managed to balance it is to accept my limitation and to understand that in our limitation, there is always a reason why we have those limitations, because those limitations opens doors for other opportunities. So I've turned my limitation to opportunities as well. And that's why people ask me, how comes you've been successful, what you do? Because I've turned my limitation of not being able to do things into opportunities. Yeah, I've understood that I don't like stress, so I avoid anything that will put me in that stressful position. Or I have a way, I pre-advance. My illness has taught me to prepare in advance for things. So while other people are happy working to very close deadline, I would like to make sure I have things all prepared and all sorted out before the deadline approaches. With my kids, I am so loving, but I have my limitation as well. Yeah. When I'm tired, mommy's tired, and I make sure they know mommy's tired and mommy needs her rest. I always use the airline quote. It's almost like if anything is happening in the plane, put your own oxygen mask first before you look after your kid. And I really learned a lot from that. I thought, this is really singing to me, that I need to learn to take care of myself. And I stopped being shy about doing that. I used to be shy. I used to be like, I don't deserve to do this. I don't deserve to tell someone I can't go out. If I can't go out and if you don't like me for it, it's fine. It's fine. I understand your own resistance. I remember my friend when I was 7 who said she couldn't be my best friend. That also taught me a valuable lesson, that not everyone will be my friend. Yeah. So I just needed to prepare myself for the good times, the times when I have friends and the times I don't have friends. And my dad was also very instrumental in that, in making sure that myself and my sisters were also very, very close. So even if I got sick, he would say to the girls, you can't go out. You have to all hang out together with Anne. Even if it means being in hospital, wherever she is, we all have to hang out together. So that was very nice. Yeah.
So Anne, drawing some of these things together and thinking about our main question tonight of where is God when it hurts, how would you sum that up? What would you say in response?
Where is God when it hurts? God is there.
Okay.
God is there. He's all around us. He's in places you don't imagine him to be. In your pain, in your battle of struggling, in whatever you're going through, God is there. The only thing, you just have to find it in you, like I did in me. You have to find that in you and find God. Seek him. He's there. He's not hiding. Reach out to him. He sent his son to die for us. And in the process, he took away our sins. He suffered like we did. So there's no reason why you should doubt where is God. God is there when it hurts. That's what I would say to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm really struck by those final comments, and I want to express my appreciation for you coming in and sharing your story so personally and openly.
Oh, gosh, thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.